Network News, and I am Terri Wisdom. And Harlem Network News is a media platform, and we are dedicated to assuring that Harlem and the Harlems of the world and the world are informed and engaged and called to action. This is very, very critical at a time like this. We're the voice and the drumbeat of Harlem. So support and bring your eyeballs, watch Black media, we matter. Today, we are honored to have with us a very special guest, and that is in the person of Chancellor David Banks of the New York City school system. And he's with us, and he's going to share about what his journey has been. So, David, if you would just say, or Chancellor Banks, if you could just say hello to our audience and
Absolutely.
just share with us, please. Thank you.
Well, Terry, first of all, just thrilled to be here with you. I know we've been working on this for some time, and I'm thrilled to be making an appearance on your show. Love your audience. The Harlem community and the Harlems of the world. So you got
Absolutely.
people even beyond Harlem who are paying attention because Harlem has been the epicenter for Black progress in our nation. And so thrilled to be here. I'm a Harlem resident, and and uh, and the work that I have done throughout my career has been meant to improve the Harlems and the Harlems of the world. Um, and so, and I have great respect for you and what you have done. And thank you for continuing to lead in the way that you do. You help to connect the dots so that our community continues to be informed. And I'm happy to join you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And we appreciate you. It's a mutual thing. We're all doing the work, we're comrades in the struggle.
That's right. That's right. Amen.
We got to keep moving forward. But if you would share just a little bit about who you are, whose you are, and what your journey has been. I mean, to come from where to become the chancellor, a little bit about Eagle Academy. Just share with us. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. First and foremost, I am the oldest of Philip and Janice Banks, my mom and dad, um, who have been married now for about 64 years. And I could not have asked, nobody could ask for a better mom and dad. My mother and father gave me and my brothers all that we needed: discipline, as well as love and support and high expectations, and taught us that there are people who fought, bled, died, sacrificed in our community for us. And we had a full on obligation to be the best version of ourselves, but also to go on and to uplift our community in whatever ways that we could. And so I live with that each and every day. Um, Product of the New York City public school system from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. Went to Rutgers University in New Jersey, where I majored in political science with the intention of going to law school. And
Okay.
then when I graduated from college, I had my first child, baby number one.
Okay.
and and so I needed a job. I wasn't ready to go to school. And my first job, Terry, was I was a school safety officer.
Okay.
I wore a
What a path.
yeah. I wore the badge and the uniform. I worked at Clara Barton High School in Brooklyn,
Okay.
and I had a great time. I was there for 1 year, and then after
Mhm.
that, I began to teach in District 17, which is in the Crown Heights section of Brooklyn, which is where I was actually born. I was born in Brooklyn.
Okay. All
Lived in
right.
lived in Brooklyn until I was 12 before my mom and dad moved, bought a house out in Southeast Queens in Cambria Heights. You
Okay.
know, my dad was a New York City police officer and was my ultimate role model. Um, and so I became a teacher. I loved it. I went to, but I always thought I wanted to be a lawyer. So I went to law school at night,
I
and
love it.
yeah, went to law school at night and taught during the day. And ultimately, throughout my career, I wound up becoming a principal. I founded two different high schools in the Bronx: the Bronx School for Law, Government, and Justice, and then the Eagle Academy for young men in the Bronx. And so I led both of those schools, created both of those schools, was the first leader for both of those schools. Over the course of 11 years, I was a principal. And then eventually I left there. I left Eagle to head the Eagle Foundation. And with that, I created Eagle Academies and put one in every borough in the city. I put one in Newark, New Jersey. Today we have 3,000 young men who attend the Eagle Academies, and we've graduated over 3,000 young men and sent them to colleges and universities across the country, and help them to understand that the potential that they have in their lives is boundless. And I think I've ever been more proud of any work that I've ever done than what I did there. And then ultimately, Mayor Eric Adams tapped me to be the chancellor for New York City schools. And I wasn't happenstance. You know, I'd known Eric for a long time before he was borough president, before he was the state senator, when he was a police officer. He came up in the police department with my brother. So we'd known him for a long time. He had visited Eagle Academy many times. And he told me years before he became mayor, Terry, he said, I'm going to be the mayor one day. And when I become mayor, I need you to be my chancellor. So as fate would have it, we partnered, we did it. It was a bumpy ride while we were there. There were a lot of issues, a lot of challenges, but I think we did some amazing things at the New York City public schools that I think are going to live on for many, many years, and some real legacy work that I'm very proud of. So, in a nutshell, that has been my story. I'm a dad to 4 beautiful children who I love dearly, 3 granddaughters. So I've been very blessed, Terry. Life has been wonderful, and God has truly blessed me.
Well, thank you for sharing. And we're here at Harlem Network News, and it's very important that people get information.
Yes.
And you sharing your story shows a progression, and that's very important for our community. It's important for young people, saying that you started out with school security and then you were teaching, then you went to law school. It just shows people what you can do, with a belief, with a move forward, or even the vision of, Eric Adams saying, I'm going to be mayor one day and I want you to be my chancellor. But before we move on, because you actually segued us to the next question, but I want you to actually share with our audience, because we're not making any assumptions that everyone knows what Eagle Academy is. So if you could just give a little bit about Eagle Academy, the all male, the why, and the what, and what is brought from Eagle Academy, because that's very significant. I don't know.
Absolutely.
We've had too many. We had a few, maybe what was Thomas Jefferson all male schools, but in the New York City school system, what made you come to that and decide that's something we needed to do?
Well, first of all, I want to start out by saying this. The creation of the Eagle Academy was not just like my idea.
Okay.
It grew from the work of my organization, 100 Black Men.
Okay.
Now, 100 Black Men is an international organization now, but it started in Harlem over 60 years ago with people like David Dinkins, who actually gave it the name 100 Black Men.
Okay, history for learning.
Yeah. People like the great businessman Bruce Llewellyn and so many others who were there in the early days, and Charlie Rangel, Congressman Roscoe Brown. I mean, we have so many great luminaries who started the organization. Cyril Tyson, who was a major government player, worked for many different administrations, and was the father to Neil deGrasse Tyson, the head of the Hayden Planetarium. His dad was the second president for the 100 Black Men. So it's an august organization. It's been around a long time, doing great things. And we'd always raised money for scholarships for young people. We'd always mentored young people, including young men. But we came across a study that was done by Columbia University, which said that, this was years ago, but it said 75% of the inmates for the New York State correctional system came from 7 neighborhoods in New York City. Now you think about that. The entire state of New York Buffalo, Syracuse, Rochester, Albany. You put the whole state together, 75% of the state's prison population, not only did they come from New York City, they came from 7 very specific neighborhoods in New York City. It was the ultimate prison pipeline. Harlem, South Bronx, Southeast Queens, Lower East Side. I mean, and it seemed like the nobody was really doing anything about it. People were writing books about it. They were doing data and analyzing data and putting out reports. But it seemed like the most you could hope for was maybe a good after school program for a handful of kids. That was it. And so we decided we wanted to do more than that as an organization. And so we decided to start the Eagle Academy for Young Men as the first all boys public school. It's not a charter school. A lot of people would write articles, Terry, about us like we were charter. We were not a charter school. We were a regular New York City public school, except that you had an organization, 100 Black Men, which adopted the school and said, we're going to lean in and we're going to provide resources. We're going to mentor the young men who go to the school, all that. But it was a regular public school. Our biggest champion that helped us get it started, because it was a question of, could you start an all-boys school? There used to be single-gender schools years ago.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Right, but there had not been an all-boys school in almost 30 years in New York City. And so the person who was our biggest champion that helped us get started was Hillary Clinton. She was the senator in New York at the time. We met with her. She pushed to have new legislation which would allow for the creation of single gender schools, as long as you did one for girls, if you were going to do one for boys.
Okay.
And as it would turn out, there was actually an all-girls school which started a couple of years before Eagle, called the Young Women's Leadership Academy, and they were around before us. And then we came along to do the boys' school. So they did several girls' schools. We did the boys' schools, and that was the reason for it. The person who named it the Eagle Academy was Reverend Jacques de Graff, also, from on a Harlem zone. And Reverend de Graff named it that because of all that the eagle embodies. The eagle eye, that level of focus and discipline, the strength, the majesty of the eagle, the aspirational values of what the eagle fully represents. The eagle has no predator, right? Like the eagle is the only animal on the planet that can stare directly into the sun and not damage its eyesight. No other animal can do that. Right? The eagle can see a storm coming from miles away. When all the other birds have to take cover, the eagle is the only one that has the power to soar above a storm. And so for all of what that eagle represents, we wanted a school that would speak to those attributes for our young men: to be strong, to be confident, not to be cocky, right? But to know who they are, and as you would say, whose they are, and to recognize their history and their responsibility to their people. And that is what we have tried to do with Eagle. It started out as a high school in the Bronx. I was the principal for the first 4 years. Okay. And now it's a grade 6 through 12 model where we get the kids right as they come out of elementary school, because you can't get them soon enough, to be honest with you. And so we keep them for 7 years, from 6th grade all the way through the 12th grade. And we've seen young men learn to truly believe in themselves. And that's the ultimate goal of what Eagle is all about. Because if a young man gets the light to go on in his own consciousness, the sky is the limit. And he can do any and everything that his skills and his talent will take him. But I had gotten so tired of seeing all the negative stereotypes about our young brothers. And nobody was doing anything. People were just having conferences and panel discussions to talk about how bad it is. But nobody was actually like, so what are we going to do now? Make a difference. And I'm so proud of my brothers in 100 Black Men. The Eagle Academy Foundation has been an amazing organization which has raised money and raised the consciousness of people around why it's so important to deeply invest in young Black men. They are our future, and I'm one of them. And so it was the honor of my life to be a part of that.
Okay. Thank you so much. That's one of the things that I love, Terry Wisdom, Harlem Network News, about interviewing people because I always learn something. You know,
Yes.
I'm familiar with Eagle Academy, but I really didn't know completely the journey and also the people and that were involved, as well as 100 Black Men. So this is another information and education
Yes.
for our audience. So
Yes.
segue to really our next question, and you kind of, you know, toured it on some of them, but what are some of the great things that you were able to implement in the New York City school system in your tenure as chancellor? And what were some of the challenges and issues that you faced as chancellor? And are some of these programs still in effect? That's a,
Well, I'm very proud to say I would tell you at least three things that I'm probably most proud of that we did. Number one is we re-engineered the entire literacy curriculum in the city of New York public schools. When I got there, our reading scores were abysmal, and we realized that it wasn't because teachers didn't care, it wasn't because the principals of the schools, um, did not care. These people care deeply. They were following a script that they were given over the years that was a flawed script, if you will. Um, because 25 to 30 years ago, Terry, our school system and many school systems around the nation shifted from some old school approaches to how you teach kids to read to something that was a new progressive way and was called balanced literacy. And in many ways, it involved a lot of guessing, where kids were not taught the fundamental bedrock of like phonics and how you have to decode words so you can even begin to make meaning of those words. So they were taught a lot of ways in which they were called, fancy word was called cueing, where they would have you guessing what words might be if you put them in context of other words. Or if you were
wow.
looking at the pictures in a book, you could try to figure out what certain words were. And it was a flawed approach, and it did not work across the nation, and it failed miserably with kids of color.
Mm.
And so we began to just see that our proficiency for our kids had dropped to all-time lows. And everybody stayed in that space for many, many years. And I was the chancellor who came along and shifted that. And I put in place something that we call NYC Reads, which is centered on something that's called the science of reading, which for those of us of a certain age, um, we knew as phonics, right? We knew it, but this is more than phonics. It's about how you make meaning, vocabulary development, reading comprehension. It's a whole, it's a whole ecosystem, but it really is a return back to the basics. And that's what I did. I took the system back to the basics, and we are seeing the results of that because our reading scores are now going up every year for the last 3 years. Our math scores are going up. We put new math programs in place as well. Because I did not want people talking to me about equity and about cultural stuff that we should be doing for our kids. And yet, the number one thing was you were not even teaching my kids how to read.
Okay.
So
Basic.
you could
Basic.
be. I've been in classrooms where there was dashikis and African kente cloth colors, and the kids can't read.
Mhm.
So
No,
yes,
it's a reality.
we need our cultural awareness, but darn it, you better make sure you're putting that foundation, because if that young person doesn't know how to read by third grade, you are setting them up for failure for the rest of their lives. And so we flipped that on its head. And I'm very happy about what we did. That's number one. That's a body of work that even the new mayor, Mamdani, the new
Mhm.
mayor elect, has said he is going to continue. He said
Good.
he saw me when I gave my speech about it. He was inspired, and he said we are going to lean into that. We're going to keep that work going, and I think you will see that will benefit the entire New York City school system, because I think the reading scores are going to continue to go up year after year after year because we put the train back on the right track. That's number one. Number two, work we did connecting the business community with our kids. getting internships, apprenticeships, partnerships between companies. At the end of the day, why do we send our kids to school, right? We want them ultimately to be able to become gainfully employed, to be able to be entrepreneurs, but to understand what business is and how to make a way for themselves. We don't want them to go to school just to go to school, but it has to be a means to an end. So what is the end? And that end is about employment, whether it's you're going to get a job, you're going to go to college and then get a job, or you're going to create your own job, whatever it is. But you need the skills
Absolutely.
to be able to do that. And that's what we called our pathways work. It's career connected learning. And kids get really excited when they understand that in a few years, when you graduate, like you could find yourself in one of these jobs because you got the skills for it. And so that was critically important to me. And those are probably the two biggest things. We put a Black Studies curriculum in place. They have not had that in the New York City school system. And everybody has a level of exposure to Black history and Black studies. And we made those curricula available to any school system around the nation as well. We responded to the war in Gaza and all the acrimony that was created between the Islamic kids, the Muslim kids, the Jewish kids, and teachers. I mean, people really started to be at each other's throats, and I put a lot of pieces in place. You know, you may recall I was called to testify before Congress.
Yes, absolutely. Thank
Yeah,
you for reminding us of that.
yeah. You know, the president of I spoke at my mother's church one day in Brooklyn. I said, you know, the president of Harvard got called to Congress, and when it was over, they lost their job. I
Hey,
said, the president of the University of Pennsylvania got called to Congress, and then she got fired after that. And so somebody yelled out from the back of the church, if I were you, don't go, don't go. But I went and I did what I had to do, and I represented for public education in New York City, and things went very, very well. And he put me on the front cover of the New York Times the next day, and I got accolades from people all around the country. Even the Obama administration reached out and said, "Now that's how you do a congressional testimony." Because a lot of times our folks were showing up and they were being overly deferential to the people in Congress, and that's not what I did. I showed up with a different level of confidence because I was on the ground actually doing stuff to make a difference. And a lot of those people in Washington, D.C. were having these hearings just to play gotcha and to perform for the cameras. And I wasn't having it. And so those are some of the things I would say that I'm most proud of.
yeah, that's a powerful thing, and thank you for jarring our memory on that because I remember when you had to go down and really testify. And
Yes,
obviously, New York City is the largest school system in the country. So, to my understanding,
yes, it is
so
by far.
we represent a lot. We represent a lot of power and leadership. You know, when it comes to school systems. So,
Yes,
are some of these projects and programs, because particularly the Black Studies curriculum, we know that that's been implemented, but I would put it on the terms of like how PBS, if you have a film or a documentary, when it gets a hard sell, that means everybody's got to take it. But when it's a soft sell, people get to
right.
choose whether or not. So, what are the circumstances of the Black Studies curriculum?
Yeah, it's still a little bit more of a soft sell, right? These things take time because mandating curricula for everybody can be very complicated in a system as large as New York City, particularly when there are so many other mandates where kids have to take social studies classes and they've got to take math and they've got to take their science classes and on and on and on and on and on.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but so many of these schools have been looking for these kinds of resources so that they can meet the moment with their kids. You know, the New York City
Absolutely.
schools, New York City school system is 65%, Black and Latino kids, and so if you're gonna be successful in meeting their needs, you got to help teach them about the history. And so since I've left, also we've launched a wide range of curricula for the Asian American Pacific Islander community, for the
Okay.
Latino community, for the gay and lesbian community. So it's important that people be able to identify themselves in text. And so we've been making more and more of these things available. But I hear your point. When you can mandate it, it carries an even greater weight, and
Right.
we
Yes.
may get to that point, but it's like almost like one step at a time.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing. We're learning, learning, learning. I'm going to go to hot New York City DOE topics, and I'm
Uh
just going to rattle them off, and you'll respond.
huh.
Um, what? And I'm Terri Wisdom, Harlem Network News. What are your thoughts on changing the standardized tests, the need for specialized schools, and the low comment on the low percentages of Black and Brown students that have been accepted to a school like Stuyvesant?
Yeah. Yeah, the standardized exams. I've never been a big fan of the standardized exams. I don't think that they tell you the potential of students who are really accelerated learners. I've always thought it was a fairly flawed system. I think there are better ways to do it. The challenge, and when I came in as chancellor, I really wanted to make um, changes to that. But you got to remember, first of all, we've got 9 specialized schools. Most people refer to the what we call the big three:
Okay.
Stuyvesant,
Yes,
Bronx Science, and Brooklyn Tech.
absolutely.
The admissions and the test for those 3 schools in particular is not within the discretion of the chancellor. That's the state which put that in
Okay.
place. So
All
I
right.
have no jurisdiction to change their enrollment at all. It's not dictated by me. It's not dictated by whoever the chancellor is. It's dictated by the state. And so here's the kicker: the other specialized high schools I actually do control. And I could have changed the admissions criteria for those schools. I wanted to change the admissions criteria for those schools. Um, but I serve under the mayor. And at the end of the day, you talk about hot topics, right? Those are hot topics.
Okay.
And
Okay.
hot topics sometimes are hotter than even the chancellor is allowed to lean in on. And so that decision to not make a switch was the mayor's decision.
Mayor's decision.
Um, and that comes from the politics that the mayor has to deal with. So I'll give you an example. This incoming mayor, Mamdani, early on, he was talking about changing the tests and dismantling that for specialized schools. And
Right.
now he's going to let it continue.
Yes.
And
Yes. And
that's because by and large, the Asian community, which
mm,
who benefit the most from these exams and these seats in these
particularly from the
schools,
big three.
particularly from the big 3 and even beyond the big 3,
Yes.
they it for them that is the hill that they're willing to die on. They believe in those tests. They think that that's the way for their kids to achieve the American dream, and they put every bit of their stock in that. And what I mean by that is, so many of their kids are studying and preparing for that exam from the time that they can read. I
From
mean,
kindergarten,
from the
from
earliest
preschool.
ages.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're just a regular kid in school and you've not been studying like that, and you're just smart, you like school, you're an accelerated learner, you almost have no chance. Because years ago, we had a greater percentage of Black kids. Brooklyn Tech was almost half Black students.
Right. Yes.
But
Absolutely.
now that has dropped dramatically. And and even the percentages of white kids has dropped dramatically.
Yeah. It's a primarily Asian. I mean, one
If
of
I
the
take,
things.
yeah, it's
I'm sorry.
primarily Asian. Yeah, because they've been studying for that test for years. And
Yes.
that test has nothing to do with what you're studying for in your regular classes in school.
No.
It's not like if you study really hard in your regular classes, that has nothing to do with it. It's a whole separate body of work.
A focus on the test. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for clarifying that, because that's a question, in mayoral debates that was asked to all the candidates, and you've clarified something, especially the fact that the state is controlling the big three. And I think, if that's where we're going to put our energy for change, then that's where we have to go. Because one of the things that I, firsthand was able to observe, because my grandson took that test, and as you said, he's smart, he's a good student. But one of the things that was not on the test, which was baffling, there's no essay. In the English, there's no essay. When if you take any, whatever, there's
Right.
going to be an essay. So I'm just saying, as a person who's learned, how are we doing a test that there's no essay? So that to me was a very interesting phenomenon.
This test in many ways, like many tests, are deeply flawed.
Mm-hmm.
They do not, and even if you do well in the test, that doesn't mean that you're going to be a better student than another person who you
Right.
just skipped over. Number one. Number two, I'll tell you another thing about the test, besides the fact on the essay, is that what you have with that test also is what they call anchor scores. So think about this. You take the test. Let's say you get a 99 on the math part and a 99 on the English. That's a pretty good score, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Let's say somebody else gets 100 in math and a 75 in English. Which one do you think gets into the school?
My guess would be the 99 and 99.
You would think that, right? Because
Yeah,
those are, I mean,
I would think the
two
99 and
really
99.
high scores. No, it's the one who gets the 100 and the 75, because the
Wow.
100 becomes what they call an anchor score.
Wow.
It basically pulls you in, and you get the spot over somebody who got even a 99, 99. So what happens is that a lot of the Asian kids master the math and
Absolutely.
get perfect scores in the math,
Mm-hmm.
thus almost guaranteeing their spots into the
Wow.
space, even
Okay.
if their literacy numbers are not as high. So it's
Interesting.
not just one score where you think you put it all together and say, okay, whoever gets the highest scores get pulled in. It's a complicated a metric around how they even do the scores. So it's in many ways it's a little bit of a rigged system, and the
Right.
only way you can break through that, if you were really trying to get a more balanced demographic of students and to really have those schools represent what the city of New York represents, you would have to have, that's a political decision that would have to be made by the mayor. And the reason why the mayors don't do it is because they don't want to alienate that other community.
The other communities.
And so
Well,
there you have it.
I'm glad we're having this conversation because me as a media person and doing little deep dives, I think it's a conversation that has to be had. I think the mayor and the governor need to be, challenged on this because,
Well,
as you
good,
said,
good,
it's
good,
not
good,
representative in
good
any
luck.
way.
Good
Okay.
luck, Terry. Because this is where the politics gets
No,
deep.
I hear you. I hear you.
And even the thought of shifting it will get the ire of the Asian community, and they have invested everything they have in this. I'm telling you. So that was part of the reason why my response was, let's create some other great schools that don't have that as an admissions criteria. You don't need to take the exam. You don't need to
Right,
spend 20 hours out of your day studying for the exam.
right.
And so, we created a flurry of other new schools that we think are going to be on par with any of those schools. Um, and I'll tell you, we got some other schools that are not specialized schools who send more kids to Ivy League than the
Well,
specialized schools.
I believe it. Yeah, because you can't, learning is holistic.
That's right.
So being a one track, but thank you. Thank you for the education. Now we're going to go, this is a quick one. What about the mandated, because this has just come about, I guess, after your tenure that started this year. What about the mandated no phones, watches, devices in the school from bell to bell? And the fact that in some districts, um, there's a real struggle to enforce this rule. So,
Yeah, I think it's one of the best things we could have possibly done. I did a lot of research on this. I wanted to put that cell phone ban in place when I was the chancellor. I had it all teed up. I have been speaking to the social scientists who are working on this. I spoke to Jonathan Haidt, who wrote the book, the seminal book around why we needed to do this and what the challenge really was for school, for our kids, the distraction of those. They are addicted to these phones, as
absolutely.
are their parents and their teachers to some degree. And if you wanted to break that, you had to remove those phones. Kids were not even paying attention in class. They don't even talk to each other in school anymore because all they do is everybody's just on their phone. And it was not good for their overall social development. And so many other things that were just negative. And so I had put in place, we were ready to go. So much so that the governor, when the governor saw what we were doing, the governor said, okay, why don't you go first, and then we'll do have the rest of the state band behind what you're doing. I brought it to the mayor, said we can lead the state and really lead the nation in many ways on this. And
Absolutely.
he decided not to do it. And so what happened was a year later, the governor did it for the whole state. So now she has gotten all the credit as being the leader for it. We were way ahead of the governor on that. But suffice that, I would say this, all of the feedback that we're getting is that this is the best thing we could have done for kids.
Absolutely.
The implementation of it is always going to be a little bumpy, but
Absolutely.
you don't have a lot of major pushback. I'm hearing from teachers and principals saying you can see the difference in the amount of focus and the attention that they're getting from kids now. One principal said, was quoted in a recent article, he said, we hear the noise in the lunchroom. The kids are talking to each other again now. Think about that. When I was studying this issue, the kids themselves, high school kids around the city, were telling me, "Take the phones. We're addicted. We don't even talk to each other anymore." And so
No.
they knew it was a problem that they needed the leadership to do something about it, and that's what we sought to do. So they put it in place once I left, and I think it's one of the best things, and I think it will have great benefits. I used to speak at churches all over the city, and every church I went to, and I would ask the congregation, should we take these phones? Everybody said, take the phones. It's not a good thing for these kids to be so, they are completely addicted to the phones. And so if nothing else, Terry, we gave their brains a chance to get a break for the 6 to 8 hours that they're in school.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I'm,
An
I'm,
opportunity.
I'm happy. I'm
Because
happy about that.
thank you. Because some of the young people don't know life before there were phones.
That's
That's
right.
not what they know. So it's very, very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. There's a whole nother topic, the AI topic, but we're not going there.
Right, right,
Sure,
right.
how to do that properly. Okay, so what can we do? What can we do um, to deal with discipline, respect, lack of civics knowledge in the schools? Because this is very, very prevalent. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts? How are you all dealing? How do you deal with that? Because
Yeah. Yeah, no, we got a great civics curriculum within the school system. A lot of schools lean into it in very powerful ways. What I was trying to do when I was there to also continue to push that, because I believe very much in that. Kids need to understand what the issues of the day are so that they are paying attention and they're engaged, how to make their communities better, how to be engaged civically so that they know how government and how democracy operates. And I can take you to some schools that will blow your mind in terms of the level at which they are operating in that space. But we certainly need to continue to lean in, and that comes from the leadership. So you need a chancellor and a mayor who talk about that on a regular basis and make it a priority if you want to see that happening across the entire system. Um, One of the things I told Mayor-elect Mamdani, listen, he had hundreds of thousands of young people who got involved in voting for him who were never involved in politics before, but they got involved because they were inspired by him. So I said, you got to take that energy and continue that momentum, bring it into the schools, and help young people understand that they're not just our future leaders, but they can be leaders right now, and they can make a difference right now, no matter how young they may be. I believe that. I believe in student voice. And so, you know, the reason probably you didn't hear it echo as much when I was there was because we were so focused on the literacy work that, so we had to get that down. But I do think that that's something that I said to the mayor, like that going forward when he chooses his chancellor, that should be a huge area that he leans into to try to do greater level of civic engagement. Now, to the other part of your question around, discipline,
thank you.
that kind of thing.
Let's not
Yeah,
gloss
yeah.
over that.
Yeah. But that's always an ongoing thing when you're dealing with young people. And in many ways, it's a social construct. It's not just what happens in the school.
No,
You can see
absolutely
you
not.
can see some kids are just straight disrespectful to their own parents, right? And so the system was not designed to know how to deal with all that. The system almost operates from an assumption that, you know, if mom or dad, like, that you're going to respect them, and then we can work through them to make sure that you're giving us your full. If you don't respect your mother or your father, I don't know what you think I'm supposed to do as the teacher. But I would tell you that still, the overwhelming number of our kids are very respectful. They don't engage in negative behavior. I try not to let the handful like dictate like that's the norm for
Or
everybody.
color it for the norm.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
no, no.
yeah. It's
You
very
know, we don't have a crazy number of incidents that take place in our schools. What we were finding was a lot of incidents were taking place after school, up the block, around the corner. And you know what was fueling a lot of that? The phones.
yeah, absolutely. The
Kids
phones,
would get on the phone and
you
tell
know,
their
the
friends
social
from other
media.
schools, this is
Somebody
where the
saying
meetup is
this.
going to be. It's going to be a fight over here. So once you start to remove the phones, it's harder for kids to organize all of that negative behavior. Um, and when you give kids something to strive for, they move very differently. So I think we're doing that for the most part. Um, and you know, again, it takes leadership.
Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
another our other hot topic, which is quick. We know that in 1954 we had Brown versus the Board of Ed, and it declared you know, separate but not equal education.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that is not going to be it's going to be unequal if you have separate you know, education. And in some of the districts in New York City, I can look at a District 5, which controls, you know, Central Harlem. We have very, 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 very few white students across the district. And
Mm-hmm.
it looks like a separate education, which according to Brown versus, you know, is not going to be equal. What are your thoughts about that? How do we work on that in terms of what's happening in the New York City school system?
Yeah, and I think for me, you know, and that's been part of almost like what the integration advocates have pushed for.
Mhm.
Um, I would probably take a little exception to it.
Okay.
Um, yeah, you know, I understand it, but I don't think that I've never ascribed to this notion that as a black child, I have to sit next to white kids in order for me to get a good education, right? Um, and if you look at some of our history, some of the greatest students that we have produced and some of the best accomplishments have come from, you know, we were in the hood, but we had great teachers and we had people who loved us and had the highest expectations for us. And there were no white kids around. And those kids could go in and can compete with anybody. Um, but you've got to have great teachers with you, and you've got to have great curricula, and you've got lots of other community supports. You just have to know how to invoke that support. That's part of what made Eagle successful, because we got the 100 Black men. They have
Right,
faith-based organizations. You have Abyssinian Baptist Church, which partners with Thurgood Marshall
right.
Academy, providing additional resources. If we invoke the village to be more involved, you don't necessarily then have to have Black kids sitting next to white kids in order to make
To make it work.
yeah,
Yeah.
because that's it's not going to happen in mass anyway. I don't care. You can talk to you blue in the face about this stuff. It has not happened and it won't happen. Historically,
Absolutely.
even when it has happened, it's happened in very small moments. A school here, a program there, and I will tell you something else, Terry, that people got to be mindful of. The demographics of New York City public schools has changed dramatically.
Mm.
The percentage of white kids who even go to New York City schools is only 15%.
Wow.
So, I mean, what are we integrating? They don't represent 50 or
They're
60%
not
of the
there.
school. They're not even here.
They're
But
not
I
there.
got news for you. You know what the percentage is of black kids that attend New York City public schools today? 19%.
Wow.
It has dropped
But what happened to
dramatically.
the 50%?
Well, what you have is the system is now 43% Latino,
Okay.
Hispanic, and it is about 18% Asian, which that number has grown dramatically in the last 10 years.
Interesting.
The number of black kids has dropped dramatically. Think about it. We all know somebody who's moved south already. We've had a remigration back south. We've lost over 300,000 black families from New York City in the last 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah, that's you know where you see it show up in our black churches, who struggle to fill the pews like they did, because folks have gone to South Carolina, North Carolina, they've gone back to Mississippi and Alabama. It's amazing, and it has happened.
The reverse migration.
It's the reverse migration, and I don't know that people fully appreciate what has happened, and it's going to have political implications. Listen, 10 years ago, you could have never had a Zohran Mamdani. Think about that. But you can have it now.
Yes, yes.
You can have it now because the demographics of our city have changed dramatically.
Okay, so I think one of the things your answer is a very interesting answer, and it has a lot of tentacles. You know, I know, and that's a long story. You know, growing up in Queens and going to a completely, you know, segregated school on the south side of Queens, you know, but I was part of busing and went to school in Jamaica Estates as part of some of the busing that was happening out of the civil rights. And I know what that was, but I also went to a Lincoln University, the first HBCU.
That's right. And, my brother went.
Okay, I was right there. And people, in fact, Gil Scott Heron was like a classmate.
Is that something? Wow, look at that.
But, and it was also a school that had initially been all male. So I was like part of the second female class. But what I know is that my classmates that came from the South, who had come from completely segregated schools, were running rings around everybody else, you know, and all of my classmates that went to Lincoln, I also went to Fordham, but all my classmates that went to Lincoln soared above everybody else.
See that? Because you know why? They were fortified from where they came from, with who they are and a confidence and the skills that they needed to be successful. And many of them probably didn't go to school with white kids. And so
none of them did. None of them.
So as you can get a first-rate education amongst your own people. And even if you look at with the superintendent Sean Davenport in Harlem now, when he took over District 5 in Harlem, I mean, their reading scores were at about 30%. It's up to 46% now, right? Still a long way to go, but he's grown at 16% in those 3 years. Their math scores were at 17%, and now they're at 42%. So they are moving it in the right direction.
You just got to make sure that even if they're separate, that they're getting the same resources, they're getting that energy, they're getting that push, because they can do it. You know,
that's right. They absolutely can. So, and Terri, I would say to you, I've got time probably for one more.
Okay, so I'm gonna go to the one more question, which is the hard question. If you could just share with our audience what led to your resignation, speaking your truth to power on this matter, so folks can hear your story, and then of course what the now and the future looks like for you, Chancellor Banks. What stuff are you going to continue to do?
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, no, listen, first of all, I've had the great benefit. I had a 40-year career with New York City Public Schools. I've had the great honor to impact the lives of countless numbers of young people. I count myself blessed beyond measure. And I have young people who are grown now with their own kids who affirm that for me almost every day. They call me, I run into them, and they send me notes that just say, thank you. Thank you for how you inspired me and how you helped get me on the right track. And this is what I'm doing now. It brings tears to my eyes, you know? And so I know that I had a blessed life. I love being the chancellor. Initially, when I took the position, I thought I would be there for even longer than the almost 3 years that I did. But we did a lot in a very short amount of time. And to some degree, I'm a spiritual person. And I heard God's voice when it said, time to go. You've given what I called you here to do. You put some building blocks in place. and now I want to move you out of the mess that had become the administration, because if I did not have to deal with the mess of what was happening at City Hall and be impacted by that, and I could have just operated in my own silo as chancellor, I would have been fine. But you don't get to do that under mayoral control. You have to work through what's happening at City Hall. And we began to watch an unraveling there that has an impact on what everybody is trying to do. And I had a 40-year unblemished career. Unblemished, Terry. I don't do mess. I've never been associated with any kind of mess. And as I'm watching all of the mess that was playing out, and then to reach the point where I literally have the FBI come to my house, I'm like, are you kidding me? Right? I've never been accused of doing anything before or since, and even then. But the fact that they even came, it creates a doubt in people's minds that makes them think that, well, maybe were you up to something, you know?
You
But
put media in it and it magnifies.
and the media magnifies it.
Yes.
But I think when all was said and done for me, I realized that God will allow you sometimes to go through a storm just to test you. And that test is to say that as long as everything is going beautifully for you in life, it's easy to praise God. Um, but but how do you respond when you've been tested? And that was a real test. And I was very cognizant of it every step of the way. Oh, this is a test. Because I knew I didn't do anything. But to even think that people would think that about you, that's a test. And it's a form of trauma, if you will.
Absolutely.
But I kept my head high. I knew who I was and whose I was. And I belong to the Most High. And I live my life like that every day. And I would never in my life do anything that would bring shame to my mother or my father, ever. And I've never have in my life, and I never would. And so I was very confident all the way through. That's why you've never heard another thing. But it became clear to me also that it was time to move on, and that's what I did, and I did the best that I could while I was there, and I think we did some things that made a real difference, and it was an honor of my life.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that, because I think it's important for your voice to be heard, in terms of
Well,
whatever occurrence.
you,
That's very
you
important for you.
Terry, you're gonna hear my voice even more. My wife and I are getting ready to launch a podcast ourselves,
Okay, I
and
love
yeah,
it. Okay,
and come the new year, you will be hearing a lot more about it. We're excited about it, and so our voices will be heard, and we will be engaged, much like you are, with some very powerful people, just trying to bring information and try to make a difference in our community.
and that's a beautiful thing. So that tells you a little bit about where Chancellor Banks is today and directions that you're going. And we thank you. And we know that this community work is critical and we have to continue to do the work in many ways. So if there's anything you'd like to say in closing, you can say it and we're going to sign off.
No, just thank you. Always grateful for the opportunity to just be in community with our people, and I thank you for what you've been doing for all these years.
Okay. Well, let us know if you need any help. Out here
Okay.
a little minute, taking all the heat that it takes to do this. And
Yes.
I'm Terri Wisdom. This is Harlem Network News, and we're very honored to have had our Chancellor David Banks here with us today. We've learned a lot, and be sure that you tune into Harlem Network News. Subscribe to us. Donate. We have Zelle. We have Cash App. And if you have stories that you feel need to be told, reach out to us because a lot of our stories are untold. And
That's
that's a part of why we're here to get the news and the information out, which is critical because also a lot of people are just hearing such doom and gloom and chaos in mainstream media that they kind of have shut down and turned off. And it's really important that we stay turned on
that's
so that
right.
we can take control of our lives. And media is
Bless.
kind of the message right now. So thank you so much, Chancellor Banks, and we look forward ever. Thank you.
Thank you. Blessings to you. Bye bye.
You as well.